Choosing the path of the modern ancient means unlearning or rejecting some of the teachings that we've been given by those who hijacked the ancient wisdom in the first place. And what I mean is becoming aware of the spirit realm, walking through life in awareness of the spirit realm. And by the spirit realm, I mean the divine realm. And by the divine realm, I mean that realm that is inside of us and underneath our conscious, underneath the surface of our conscious mind, in the depths of our unconscious, where much of what's important in our life actually takes place. Those passions and hang-ups have to do with the unconscious realm, and that's where the different gods and goddesses live. Today is Friday. Friday is named after Freya, the Norse goddess of love, and it corresponds to, in the Spanish, it's Viernes, and that corresponds to the goddess Venus, the goddess of love and beauty. And those goddesses inside of us, those are very powerful and important parts of who we are. And they are operating beneath the surface. And if you don't get to know and become in touch with that realm, then you can go through life moved around like a little boat on the surface. You have no idea about these powerful currents that are swirling underneath, or you can walk through life becoming aware of and perceiving the gods and goddesses within us and the gods and goddesses in the heavens, whose motions are also attributed to the gods and goddesses. The different days of the week are named after the heavenly bodies of the sun and the moon and Mars and Mercury and Jupiter and Venus and Saturn. And of course, there are other gods and goddesses, and they all have roles to play within us. They are playing roles within us. They are acting in our subconscious, and the myths map it out for us. And we need to get to know the gods and goddesses within us and learn how to invoke and call upon those gods and goddesses within us. But we also want to be aware of the positions and influences of the planets that are connected with the gods and goddesses as well, including Venus. Venus is the planet associated with Friday, and Venus is an incredibly important and powerful planet. The Maya based so much of their calendar on Venus that the Maya appear to have been the most sophisticated in their understanding of Venus. The Maya paid tremendous attention to Venus. If you go to Chichen Itza, or if you read about Chichen Itza, at Chichen Itza, there is a tower it's called El Caracol, which in Spanish means the snail. It's a circular observation tower, and it has observation windows, but some of the remaining windows facing to the west contain precise alignments for the cycle of Venus rising and setting. Well, the ones facing to the west have to do with Venus setting positions, and the cycle of Venus setting along the western horizon, from the northernmost setting on the western horizon down to the southernmost setting. El Caracol contains alignments, windows that map out that alignment. The Maya paid attention to Venus. We today should be paying attention to where the different planets are and what they are doing and what influences they have on us here on Earth, because they have influences. The so-called Aztec sunstone, it maps out Venus cycles. It should probably be called the Venus stone. Ksenia and I made a video about the Venus stone, and you can check that out. the Tychos model, as opposed to the Kepler model that we're taught and that we're not allowed to question. Kepler was the assistant of Tycho Brahe, and Simon Schach has pointed out that Tycho's model was very accurate for explaining what's going on in the heavens. It just needs a little bit more additions, which Simon has added to the Tycho Brahe model, and that's why it's called the Tychos model. But Tycho Brahe died mysteriously, and then his assistant Kepler came up with a totally different model, fudging the data, by the way, because he couldn't make the motions of Mars fit. So he had to actually fraudulently fake the data. But Kepler's model, suspiciously, was just seized upon, and that's what we're all taught today. So if you go look at the Tychos model, and I strongly suggest that everybody look into that, and don't get discouraged if at first it's a lot to process and it is so different from what you've been taught. But the Tychos model shows that those motions of the planets, are in an incredible harmonic synchrony. The motions of the sun and Mercury and Venus and the Earth and the Moon and Jupiter are all locked in these resonances. Go look at the chapter that talks about the number 16. It's amazing. The motions of Venus, when it comes around and the Earth and Venus come into their closest conjunction, the same face of Venus is always presented to the Earth, as if we're locked together in some way. The Kepler model and modern quote-unquote science, which is just another false fabrication. A lot of it is a false fabrication to keep you from connecting with the spirit world, connecting with the divine world. They would just say, oh, that's just coincidence. There's no explanation for that. It's just randomly happened when the solar system formed, that when these two planets that aren't really connected to each other in any way pass each other, Venus always shows the same face to the Earth. No, it's not just random. They're locked in a dance. And the Maya paid close attention to the motions of Venus and the other heavenly bodies. And so did all the other ancient cultures. The ancient wisdom was hijacked, and the hijackers want to disconnect you from this ancient knowledge. They want to disconnect you from walking through life in connection with the spirit realm. They want to disconnect you from the divine realm. They want to disconnect you from the influences of those gods and goddesses that are moving and that have impact on us on Earth. They have impact on the Earth. They have impact on us. The moon is tremendously important. We'll talk more about that on a Monday, perhaps. But the moon obviously influences us. There are studies that show that, the influences of the moon upon the human body, the influences of the moon upon the tides of the ocean. Venus influences us. And in the Tychos model, the retrograde motions are real. They are not an illusion. I've done a whole video about this, but the Kepler model and what we get taught is that a retrograde is just an optical illusion. It's when we're passing another planet and the other planet appears to move the other direction in the heavens. If you look at the Tychos model, you will see that when Venus goes retrograde, or when Mars goes retrograde, or when Jupiter goes retrograde, their motion through the heavens actually changes. As I explained in a more lengthy video, they're still making circles around the sun. They're still making circles around the sun. But if the sun is making circles in a binary dance, which is what the Tychos proposes and argues with tons of evidence, then as the sun makes its circle, it's going to drag those other bodies that are circling it into epitrochoidal motions in the heavens themselves. So Venus will actually get pulled into a epitrochoidal retrograde, where it's like I said in that other video, it's like a train that's going past. Normally on its motion is going past us, but on the retrogrades, it turns and comes straight towards us, and then it turns again and goes away. Well, if those heavenly bodies are locked in some kind of a magnetic resonance, then when they do that, they're going to have an impact on us. And Venus will be going retrograde on the 1st of March. So when Venus goes retrograde, it has an impact on us. It's not just an illusion. So Venus is coming up on a retrograde. Jupiter just completed a retrograde. And if you want to learn more about the influences of those retrogrades, I recommend you go check out the work of Ksenia, who every week publishes a discussion of what is going on in the heavens and the motions of the planets through the background of stars. And I realize that looking at the Tychos and studying it can be daunting at first, but I urge you to push through and persevere with that, and then start to become familiar with what they're arguing and learning some about those cycles, but more importantly as well, tying it into your own life. And by that I mean, as we walk through from one day to the next, being aware of the locations of the moon and the planets in the heavens and against the backdrop of the stars. Being aware of the cycle of the moon and being aware of the location of the moon as it moves throughout the month, and then becoming aware of the location of Venus and the location of Jupiter and the location of the other planets. And in order to do that, you're going to have to start to become aware of your location on the planet. Which direction is south? If you're in the northern hemisphere, you look to the south and you see the planets rising in the east and setting in the west, just like the sun, just like the moon. But you have to look to the south if you're in the northern hemisphere. If you're in the southern hemisphere, you look to the north and you'll see the planets rising in the east and setting in the west, but you'll be looking to the north, so they'll be rising on your right and setting in the left. Whereas if you're in the northern hemisphere, you'll be looking to the south, they'll be rising on the left and setting on the right. So it takes becoming aware of your location, which way is north, and when you look up at the sun during the day, think about, okay, what's its arc? Where did it rise? Where is it setting? And then becoming aware of where the planets are, their locations. It takes a little time, but as you're walking through your day, becoming aware of where those planets are and what influences they are having on you, that is becoming attuned to the spirit realm. That is becoming attuned to the divine realm and the impact of those planets that are each connected with the gods and goddesses in different cultures around the world. The ancients understood that. The ancients paid attention to that. And then the ancient wisdom got hijacked and we were told, none of that is important. Don't pay attention to it. Well, I recommend thinking about ways to walk through life in connection with the spirit realm, in awareness of that, both internally and externally. And if you want some resources to help you do that, like I said, check out the work of astrologers such as Ksenia and her different astrologers that she talks to and works with, like Lada and Crassi. And I also have an online course entitled Celestial Mechanics and the Myths to help you understand which direction to look and when you're trying to figure out what the different planets are doing, what the moon is doing, the celestial mechanics of what's going on against the backdrop of the stars that play such an important role in all the myths of the ancient world before they were hijacked. And I also have my most recent book is entitled invoking the ancient gods in you. You have those different gods and goddesses within you. The goddess Venus, the goddess Aphrodite, the goddess of love and beauty and sexuality. You have those divine forces within you, and we all know that we have those powerful forces within us. Starting to invoke, that means call upon and become in touch with the different gods and goddesses in you. That is part of the path of the modern ancient, and I recommend doing it every day, and I recommend doing it in conjunction with the days of the week, which are conveniently named for those different heavenly bodies that are associated with gods and goddesses. So today is Friday. Meditate on the goddess Venus, the goddess Aphrodite. She's associated with a lot more than just sex and beauty. Paying attention to the gods and goddesses within us and in the heavens can become a daily practice, and I recommend becoming more attuned to their location. Don't get discouraged. It's not something that happens all at once. It takes some effort, and I would really recommend looking into the Tychos and looking at the Tychosium and seeing those retrograde motions and thinking about them, and then incorporating that into your daily life. Where is Venus right now? Where is Jupiter right now? Where are they in the heavens? Where is the arc that they're traveling along? You can use Stellarium to help you with that. It's a free online downloadable planetarium software that you can download, and then you can dial in your location. But you can also look at the Tychosium and see from a bird's eye view, where is Venus in relation to the Earth right now, and what's about to happen with this upcoming retrograde, when Venus will turn towards us and make a big change in her path and come straight towards us. And that is a Venus retrograde. And you can read the Tychos book online and read about those resonances, read about how Mercury and Venus are actually moons of the sun, and they're locked in these tidal locket, the tidally locked nature. It all speaks to an interconnection. This interconnection is denied by the priests of modern science, but it's very real, and we can incorporate it into our lives. And so I've given you some resources. I hope that that is helpful, and think about these things on Friday and every other day of the week as we walk through this life, becoming more in tune and aware of the spirit realm, the divine realm. Thank you so much.